Today is Friday, June 18th, and this is Headers and Footers, the new UEFA Euro 2020 show from the Toronto Star. I'm your host, Brendan Dunlop. We've now seen a week of action at Euro 2020, and today we got a game that millions upon millions of people circled as soon as the draw came out, seeing that we would see the oldest rivalry in international football renewed on the big stage. England v. Scotland. It's a rivalry that started in 1872 and one that has meant much more for regional pride than competitive comparison in recent decades. But as we saw at Wembley, over 90 minutes in London, Scotland proved that they can hang on the pitch with their star-studded southern neighbors. The scoreline reads a draw, but that was very much a victory for Scottish soccer in every sense. There isn't a Scottish person on the planet tonight that hasn't sung Flower of Scotland at least half a dozen times. And for any Scot that bought a ticket on the resale market, paying upwards of $1,200 Canadian, they'll be happy with their investment. Happy to be joined again by Laura Armstrong from the Toronto Star. Laura, I'm just going to call this what it was, okay? The perfect setup for England to finish second in the group.
I'm not going to lie, when things were getting pretty bad out there, I started writing. I have my notepad right here, and I started writing like points and thinking to myself and looking at the standings and thinking, maybe it's better if England finishes second, which is the first step of an England fan in like the managing of expectations. Oh, well, we don't need to finish first. We can finish second. It's fine.
Well, there's going to be a lot of scribes, I think, rewriting their pieces tonight because they would have expected to write about a victory. Then they would have expected to write about a real, battle, impressive effort, valiant effort by Scotland. And I think they'll be writing a lot about Gareth Southgate's selections because while he only made two starting changes to his lineup, both the fullbacks, bringing in Luke Shaw and on the other side, bringing in Reece James. Again, it's the substitutes that he brought on when he brought them on and the ones he didn't bring on that will be all the talking points now. I mean, when Phil Foden's number went up, I thought, oh, that's got to be an error from the fourth official. There's no way Phil Foden's coming off. Thank God Jack Grealish came in. I know that I'm biased. I'll admit that. There's a real Villa bias. I know that he can change games, and England needed a player to change the game. He wasn't able to do that. But Phil Foden was the best attacking player that England had at the moment.
Absolutely. Phil Foden was one of the only English players out there who looked like he gave a darn. So I have no idea. And he was the only one who was playing with any sort of tempo. Like that was a huge problem for England. They were barely moving the ball at any sort of pace, right? And you've got, the fullbacks and the center backs for Scotland had acres of time. I mean, Harry Kane looked slow, which is not something that any England fan wants to say. So yeah, Phil Foden, that substitute made absolutely no sense to me. Jack Grealish coming on, like I have no problem with it. I think Jack Grealish for England is used best as an impact substitute, frankly. But I think that it's like there's so many players that you could have taken off instead. I mean, Sterling didn't show up at all. I think you could have taken him off. I think Mason Mount is a guy who, he had his moments, maybe a few more than Sterling, but I think that you could have made shifts that made sense. And if you had put Grealish on and Scotland had to deal with Grealish as well as Phil Foden, maybe you would have had more than basically a one-prong attack, which is what England led out with. This is the conversation this is a big question going into this tournament, right? How was Southgate going to manage his attack? And what we saw was England's center back having the best chance of the game in the opening, 10 minutes?
I know. When John Stones went up for that header and put her off the bar, I'm surprised that really that was one of the very few shots that had a chance of actually being on target. They had the bulk of the possession, England, 60%. But as you mentioned in highlight there, Harry Kane just did not look himself at all. I know he's surrounded by so much youthful energy on both sides of the pitch, but he truly did not look like himself at all and really didn't look capable of scoring. And for as long as he was out there, especially with the Foden substitution, I truly thought that Harry Kane would be the first one off, but that wasn't the case. And we didn't see Jadon Sancho again for England.
We didn't see Jadon Sancho again. And, I do question, and this is my inherent bias coming on, like you've got Saka, who is not even making the 23-man roster. He's not even on the bench. And you look at that England squad and you think they could use some width, right? And they could use a middle player who can link up with that width. And I think those two players are players who could come in and change the game. And I think that I have to give Gareth Southgate some credit because I didn't actually think he would even take Harry Kane off, to be honest. I thought that I didn't know that he would have the nerve to take Harry Kane off. And I think that just goes to show you how badly Harry Kane sort of performed or how non-existent he was. I mean, he wasn't even necessarily bad. He just didn't do anything, right? Like it wasn't an interesting performance from him, but it's certainly a question of, is he going to go with these sort of typical veterans that have gotten England to where they've gotten in the past, or is he going to start trying to use some of these young players that he's brought? And for me, it's like, why not? Why not try and use these players? Why not give them some, particularly in a game like this where Scotland is the underdog for sure. You're playing at home and you already have 3 points under your belt. Why aren't you giving some of these players a run out? And I mean, if you give Harry Kane the first half, I get it. But if he doesn't do anything within 60 minutes, don't wait till the 74th because you're not giving these young players enough time to impact the game.
Yeah, it's interesting because he did make a change and bring in a young star who's coming off a Champions League win in Reece James. But I mean, of all the young players with attacking prowess, the right fullback is not the one that I expected. And had this tournament been played last year, as we've said before, Reece James wouldn't have been in the squad. And now I think he's going to get his MBE for his goal line clearance to stop Lyndon Dykes from scoring for Scotland.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that England fans need to be concerned about as well. This wasn't just a matter of Scotland scraped by, right? Scotland had the better chances of this game. I mean, other than the John Stone chance, really, I mean, Sterling was in once, Luke Shaw was in once. Neither of them really tested anybody. Whereas there were a number, the Phil O'Donnell chance, the off the line clearance. There were Che Adams had a great game. I mean, England, I wish could bring Kieran Tierney, Andy Robertson, and Che Adams to the next round if they advance because those are 3 players that I really think could help this team. But I certainly think that, there's a lot that was lacking from England. Scotland, I mean, dug in deep. You have to give them full credit for what they did today. And that point, who knows, maybe it could be important going forward. But I certainly think that there's going to be a lot of conversation now about why England is a favorite. And I do think that is merited. It's also England fans just completely melting down after the first bad result. This happens every tournament, but still, I think it's worth it because they don't look like a team who is really going to be able to battle against some of the best teams that we've seen so far.
I've been getting the "Why are England favorites" texts just before we came on to record from friends as well. I've got a very biased and blockheaded continental fan, let's just say, who thinks that La Liga and Serie A are the only leagues worth watching. And this match, though, of course, he watched it closely and it had plenty of opinions, as I'm sure a lot of England fans and England haters will after this game. Scotland, I thought, were not fazed whatsoever by the big occasion. They really came to play, and I thought they were, hard done by Patrick Schick in their opener against the Czech. I didn't think they were as poor as the scoreline reflected. And today, as you highlighted, some of the young players and the Premier League stars that were really up for it. And I thought Che Adams, who Joe Callahan said on the show has to start for Scotland, really impressed. And you can look at it and say, if there was going to be a winner in this match in the last 30 minutes, it truly felt like watching that for me, it would be Scotland.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that, you've got, you had the strengths that you assumed. And what I really liked about this lineup from Steve Clarke was the fact that he went for it. Like, he was not sitting back. He was going to give England the game. And certainly Scotland did. And I think that they have multiple, ways to attack. I think what they lacked in the first match was they lacked not having Kieran Tierney, right? It became kind of a one-dimensional attack. You knew that things were going to probably go through Andy Robertson. And I think that, having Kieran Tierney and the fact that he can just sort of go around Robertson or he can go in the other direction. I mean, that ball to Phil O'Donnell was like pin perfect. It's fantastic. And he's an Arsenal player. So of course I'm big on him. And I spent the whole game being like, please don't get injured. But I certainly think that he made that team better. And between like the performance that Che Adams put in and the performance that Kieran Tierney put in, I actually was very excited for Scotland-Croatia because I don't know what's going to happen there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was really excited for this match, and I know that you were as well when it was confirmed how authentically British this was going to be when Mother Nature decided to rain down on Wembley Stadium. What about the other matches that we saw on Friday? Sweden have 1 foot in the next round after a win to put them on 4 points.
They certainly do, and I don't think they deserve it at all. I love the Swedish fans. Swedish fans are among the supporters that I think make this tournament. But when you think about the Denmarks and North Macedonias, even these teams that have gone out and really gone after it, I just don't think that Sweden has played the way that they should. I think that they're playing to win, and I understand that they executed a game plan very well again today, and they started to look a little bit better in the second half. It was nice to see Emil Forsberg get into the action a little bit more. But it's too negative, and I hate that kind of play. So Sweden has not won. I mean, I know it's not new, but Sweden has not won any favors in my books.
Well, tomorrow we'll see the group of death again. So we could see 10 goals or we could see 2 goals all day. Thoughts on Saturday's fixtures?
I think we all deserve it after sitting through today, because today I think was probably the most boring in my books day of Euro so far. But not even just the group of death, but that Poland-Spain game. I mean, with the result today, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. So I think that we're in for a fantastic day. I think that, of course, Portugal, Germany is going to be the marquee match. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you that I think Germany is going to come out on top.
Really?
I don't know if I'm saying that just to anger you or because I truly believe it, but that's my feeling in my heart.
Or you're swooned by the bookies because they've got Germany as a favorite, which I think is tremendous value for Portugal. Although I think maybe they were just trying to shave money off of the draw. But yeah, the line's favoring Germany. And after the way Portugal performed for 80 minutes, I can see that. But after the way Portugal took over in that game and Germany kind of just seemed to go through the motions against France, I think it's a bit unfair, those lines from the bookies.
Well, I will say that Germany surprised me in the first game. And I think that that's maybe why I'm a little bit swayed at this point in time. But, I'm ready to be disappointed. That's the life of a sports fan, right? I learned from today.
Well, hopefully we get an enjoyable weekend to watch. I enjoy reading you in the Toronto Star. We'll speak to you soon. I know Laura's not alone there in lacking excitement for more chances to watch Sweden play. I said in my recap video on all the Toronto Star social channels, you won't get those 90 minutes of your life back. We haven't had to say that too much of this tournament, but definitely said that with the early kickoff on Friday. I mean, Sweden were criticized for taking Alexander Isak off against Spain and not going for it. He played all 90 minutes today, and he was really their only hope, so it seemed, even though Sweden completed more passes in the first half against Slovakia than in 90 minutes against Spain. They still were boring. They made poor use of the ball when they did have it, and they were even defensive going forward. Now, okay, maybe I am being a little harsh on Sweden. Slovakian goalkeeper Martin Dubravka was tested a few times. He showed what Newcastle fans already know, that his reflexes are top class. But Dubravka was responsible for Sweden's trip to the penalty spot, and the Slovakian keeper had no answer for Emil Forsberg. It was a perfect penalty strike from Forsberg. That 77th minute goal, the deciding factor, and the reason that we're now looking ahead to watching Sweden in the last 16. Much more excited to see the Czechs in the knockout round, let me tell you. Playing in Britain has really allowed the Czech Republic to regain that form that they had at Euro 96. After his wonder goal against Scotland, the Schick show continues. Continued at Hampden Park on Friday. Patrick Schick, the 25-year-old, scoring from the penalty spot with a bloody nose, courtesy of a sharp elbow from Dejan Lovren, who looked like he was playing for Liverpool again. Those Croatian away kits look a lot like a recent Liverpool away kit with the Czechs. Lovren was furious with the referee for that penalty call as well. He was booked with a yellow card. He was so upset, and it seemed like a lot of ex-pros, didn't matter what television panel they were on around the world, seemed like they also agreed with Lovren that should not have been a penalty. I was surprised to see even former referee Mark Clattenburg, who refereed the final in Paris 3 years ago between France and Portugal. He came out and said that was not a penalty. But it was, and I really, really wanted to see Schick try a Panenka. I know I'm not alone in that. Admittedly, Friday wasn't the most exciting day for the neutrals, okay? I can say that. It looked like it might have been a great day. But now we have Group F again to look forward to as match day 2 comes to a close on Saturday. Several Premier League stars locking horns in Munich as Germany need a result against Portugal. Difficult position for Germany to be in at the Allianz again. A win for the Seleção, that would put the champions at ease and allow Fernando Santos to experiment with all of his attacking options in their final group game against France. What a luxury. The world champions playing Hungary, and James Sharman said on Footy Prime, He didn't think that Hungary would leave this tournament without getting a point in the group stage. Imagine if that came against France. It's possible. Anything is. I mean, the French were better than Germany the first time we saw them. But for all their attacking poise, the French, it was an own goal that earned them the victory, right? Now, I'm still not sold on the French, and I question the mood in that change room, and I know I'm not alone there. Did you realize that it was this weekend last year that the Premier League returned after lockdown? Hard to believe where we are. But I'm very glad to be here with you and talk to you every night, every match night that is, on Headers and Footers. Thanks for watching on YouTube. Please continue to download, subscribe on all podcast platforms if you haven't already, and leave us a review. Trust me, it helps tremendously. I hope this has helped made for a good Friday night and a good start to your weekend. Thanks for kicking it with me.